started at 6:32 for the meeting. Introductions. Suzanne, would you like to start?
Suzanne Buck. Jory Jacobite.
Mary Gill.
Chip Malcolm.
Lorraine Morse.
Peter Burrow, Superintendent.
Victoria Jetty.
Jen Newseeder. Sabina Damaret.
Vicki Wells, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. Okay. Do we want to?
Sure.
Do the other administrators like to
Caitlin Steele, Director of Teaching and Learning. Courtney Gelman, Business Manager.
would everyone like to introduce themselves?
Sure.
I'm Carrie Duquette Hoffman, and I'm a mom of a student ambassador.
Jason Duquette Hoffman. I'm a dad of student ambassador.
Tracy Harrington, I'm a mom of a student ambassador, also principal at Ripton Elementary.
Millard Cox, I live in Ripton. I have two sons that came through moms years back.
I'm Laura McIntosh. I live in Ripton. I have two kids at Ripton Elementary.
I'm Rebecca Irwin. I live in Middlebury, and I'm a parent of a student who's presenting.
I'm Dolly Harrison. I'm going to be presenting tonight.
And my name is Amy Python. I'm the Dean of Students here at Moms.
I'm Chris Frankworth, principal of Moms.
Nico Great, I'm a member of the High School Student Council.
Catherine Schritt. I'm also a member of the High School Student Council.
I'm Kyle Mitchell, and I'm also a member of the NHS Student Council, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Kevin Barkdahl. I'm a junior. I'm a member of the student. I'm vice president of the student council. He's president.
Jan Craig. I'm with the student ambassador.
Thank you all. Okay, this is our time in the evening where we have public comment. So if there's anybody here who would like to address the board.
Is it from here? Can I address the board? I invited the students from Middlebury Union High School because they are very interested in working with us on participating as potential board members. So they've come to observe us and to see how the board operates. So thank them for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I would like to say thank you to the board for letting us come and to Mary for inviting us. And yeah, we hope eventually, especially later this summer, to explore the possibility of having representation on the board. So thank you.
Mr. Coffin.
Just have a public comment. I'm from Ripton, and I have a concern about the way the school board is constituted in terms of how Ripton is represented and how much, what size of a voice we have, how much power we have on the board, which is very little. We have one representative out of 13. And the small towns combined have 6 votes. Middlebury has 7 votes. And the way the voting takes place for the representatives means that it's conceivable that the representative from Ripton would not even be elected by Ripton citizens. Because we could be outvoted by Middlebury, for example. So if there were 2 candidates for our seat, one that the Ripton people wanted, and one that perhaps the Middlebury people wanted, the representative that Middlebury wants might take our seat. So essentially, our representation on the board is threatened. We're disenfranchised in a way. And I just wanted to make that clear, that that's my feeling about how the board is constituted and how decisions might be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has anything they'd like to say?
Hi, I'm Dolly Harrison Irwin. One of my English teachers, Miss Sears, so I was in a class last trimester called PIP, which is Personal Interest Project. And the class, basically what it is, we can choose pretty much any topic that we want to study about. Like, I picked stress in middle school and high school age kids, and how it's coming from the schools and the outside extracurriculars. And I'll just hand these out. But I made these pamphlets for my project. So the title of my project was kind of When School is Too Much, because we always think about school like we have to go every day. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but we learn a lot. But also, it's the amount of homework we have doesn't seem like a lot, but with all the extracurriculars that we do, just like students in general, the stress level can be really high for kids. And some research that I found was that students have much, like middle school and high school age students have much higher levels of stress than adults, just with all the projects and presentations and everything that they have to do for school. And especially for high school students, it's a lot more because of college prep, and it can just be really unhealthy for students too. So I chose this topic because it's becoming a really big problem in today's society, and doctors are even calling it the stress epidemic because kids have so much anxiety. And today, kids make anxiety a joke, sort of. It's like, oh, I'm so stressed, oh my god, I want to die, I don't want to do this. And that's really unhealthy for kids, because if you get that in your head, then you're just not going to want to do anything. And I feel like just walking around the school, you hear kids complain about how much work we have. And I'm not trying to say no homework or something like that, just that what we have in this school here, the homework that we have, we either have a ton of it at once or none. And that's just a super big adjustment all the time that we have to do that. We either have like 5 projects at once or nothing. And it's just so much stress, along with sports and instruments and everything else, that adults are like, you should do this, it's good for you, it's healthy to do all these extracurriculars. And kids are just like, oh, we have all this school to do. And teachers also tell you to do a lot of outside of school things, but if we have so much work to do and we have to focus it all on school, then we have no time to have fun with our families or play instruments or ride our bikes. So I just found that a lot of teens just talk about their stressful experiences with their friends, and they don't talk to adults. And I think that if more students were able to talk to adults about it, then some change could be brought up, which is why I came here tonight. And just an example of what's been happening, I found there's a school in New Jersey, I forget the exact name, but 15% of their student body was hospitalized from fainting and headaches and just like a lot of really bad symptoms from the amount of stress. And it's a public school, but it was really competitive. And I'm not sure, since I'm only in 8th grade, about the high school vibe, but I guess it's probably competitive, especially when you're like trying to get into colleges. So yeah, I just felt like this would be a really important topic to address, and if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
I was like, what was your first name again?
Dahlia.
Dahlia? Thank you, Dahlia, for sharing this with us. Is there anyone else that has anything they'd like to say to the board? Okay. That being said, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of our May 28th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Second. Are there any corrections or additions, omissions? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes of May 28th, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining?
And Davina.
And Lena. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the bills. Jim?
2 sets of bills. First one from the 3rd of June, Victoria. Jenny and I read them. There was from the general account, the bills totaling $464,036.85, plus payroll expenses of $15,302.81 for a total of $339,339.66. And the second one was I guess it was food service, which is $20,943.71 plus $30 for a check if that was returned, and so that's a total of $20,973.71. Another food service bill, total of $28,678.27. Plus another check, $10, for a total of $28,688.27. The second set of bills were read today, again with Victoria and myself. General fund total was $72,709.09, plus $100 for checks that have to come out even, plus payroll expenses of $937,178.35, for a total of $1,009,987.44. I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Moved by Chip and seconded by Victoria. All in favor of approving the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, next on the agenda is our favorite part, where we get to come to these other schools. We get to hear communications from the students usually, and that's okay.
Welcome to Mums. We're glad you could all join us here tonight. In just a moment, the students are going to take over the presentation because I figure you'd always rather hear from the students than from the adults. Mums has had a great year. We did obviously have a stressful winter with our safety incident, but around that, the most wonderful, incredible things have been happening. And we just talked about PIPs a little bit. I would say, I think a lot of the adults, we would say that PIPs have been the coolest new addition to Mums this year, personal interest projects. It started as a way to sort of make sure that students all had a time in the day where they could go after learning that was of high interest to them. We had PIP exhibitions today. At various points in the day, a bearded dragon walked through my office. We've had rats, turtles, crossbow designs, incredible art, cooking. What other PIPs have we had, guys? Musical PIPs. We've had everything, and it has been just a wonderful thing to watch our students embrace that learning. It's been a great year as we implemented the NYP fully. And now we're going to let the students introduce themselves and talk about Mums.
Before they go, this is not rehearsed. We did not write this for them. They wrote this and we put it on the screen for you. So this is a group of kids who we kind of morphed the Pride panel with the student council to come up with student ambassadors so we could give them a lot more jobs from either one. And I have to say they rose to their mission, and they want you to know, they want you to know what they like about Mums, and this is really just them, it's not us, and what they think could make Mums better. And you're going to hear some echoes over here from. So what we thought we'd do is just start and have each kid do a slide. I'll just keep it going. Introduce yourself when you start. Go ahead.
So we're the student ambassadors, and we're nominated by students on our teams, and then chosen by the teachers on our teams. And this is the first year that this has happened, and we're made up of the 4 teams: Ohana, Mosaic, Paragon, and Phoenix.
And you are?
I'm Lewis.
And where are you from, Lewis?
I am from Ohana.
And what town?
From Shore. I am Claire. The kids that are on this student ambassadors for Ohana are Claire Burley, Dakota Blair, Jack Trudeau, and Louis.
I'm Nell, and these are the kids from Mosaic, and they are Delaney Fielder, Henry Weston, Ivor Anderson, and Simone Duquette Hoffman.
This is Paragon. The student ambassadors that are on Paragon are Baxter Harrington, B. Porter, Jocelyn Smith, and Cohort.
And then on Phoenix, we have Luke Klingensmith, Nell Brayton, Nora Wooten, and Toby Wells Stackman. Okay, so the concerns of students and what we think, like, the school could, what we could make better in the school. So we plan a lot of challenges.
Can you explain them a little bit?
Yeah, so like for some Pride Cups we plan, or student assemblies, we'll plan like fun activities for like people from each team to do, and yeah.
We help with school events, and that is a picture of bake sale, and like one of the school events was the winter extravaganza, and they're really fun.
Can you explain what happened at it? Because that was a big undertaking.
We do a lot of activities at them. Like in some rooms we got to play games, and like we brought together students' ideas to help like put into the school events what the students wanted.
So one of the students had the idea of the bake sale, and kids came in and they sampled and got to vote on their favorite prize or their favorite dessert, and then they won a prize, and that was all their idea. The whole winter extravaganza was their idea.
One thing that we love about moms is all the freedom, like in between class times and sometimes study halls. We're allowed to like walk around if we want to, like in the hallways, and yeah.
Another thing that we love about moms is our gym class. We get to do different like types of sports and new, and we get to learn more.
So our after-school activities are a really big hit at moms. We have, you can see them up there. There's like all the different sports, and there's a lot of clubs for all different interests.
Yeah, we really like the teachers. They're all really good teachers.
We really put that in there.
Oh yeah, so another good thing about moms is that kids from like a bunch of schools all like end up here, so you get to meet people that you maybe have like never met before, or if you're friends with someone but they're at another school, you get to have a lot more time with them. We also like how there's different teams, and we have challenges against the other teams, and adds another fun aspect to it.
So we also like the challenges and Tiger Cup that we sometimes plan, because it's like a competitive thing that gets a lot of students excited and like interested.
What was the first challenge up there? The picture on the left. What were we doing?
Oh yeah, the food drive. So like
just kids, when it's competitive, they just really care a lot more about it. So like, it's nice how we get to do challenges that help people, but also it's really fun for us.
Something else that we love about Mums is the building in the fields, because we have a lot more space to like do stuff during gym, and it's just like a really nice building too.
What we think that can make Mums even better is the bus system, because right now I live about 25 minutes away from the school, and anytime that I take the bus home, it takes me about an hour to get home. So we were just thinking that like the bus system can be improved a little bit, so it would be faster.
And another thing that we think could make Mums better is that we are going outside, because we're in way too much, and if we only go outside like when it's during PE or when some teachers sometimes get the opportunity to go out for a break for like a couple minutes, and I think we should get outside.
So the food in our cafeteria is not always of the best quality, and it's not always like the most healthy. So we just want to add some more funding for the food budget and improve that.
So this is for, we would like less homework, because we feel as though it puts a lot of stress on the kids and they don't have enough time to be at home and do stuff that they want to do. And like kids get less sleep, and we think that we should have less homework.
Music.
Another thing that could make it better would be like more opportunities to listen to music, because it like calms us down, and also we can like focus more, and also make the classes more enjoyable.
Okay, we think we'd like some more movement during class instead of just sitting for the whole class, which can get tiring, I guess, and make you stiff.
Because how long is a class?
Like 80 minutes. A block is like 40 minutes.
Well, most classes are
Most
80 minutes.
80 minutes, yeah. So this year we had a lot fewer dances than last year, and we would like more dances because we feel like it's really fun, and it's not just about raising money for teams, but also like the kids have fun with them.
Well, something that could help Mums get better is that like when we have projects that we have to do, we barely have enough time to like finish them, and then the teachers will be like, it's okay, you have like a week to do this or something, and then our projects are due the next day and it's kind of annoying. So it'd be nicer if teachers could coordinate that better, I guess.
Another thing that we thought we could do was
So we want Mums to go solar. We're in the perfect location for it. There's lots of, like there's barely any shading around Mums, and like we could fit a lot of panels on our roof. It would be very expensive at the beginning to like buy enough panels for to power a school this size, but since this is such a big building, it would be definitely cost effective in the long run. Yeah, we could probably generate a lot pretty fast in our location.
Nope.
Gardens. We could also produce our own food, which we could also put in our school lunches, And then it would also be really cool for people to contribute and like do little gardens outside.
Yes. All right, so, in my opinion, the most important part of this is, the school needs goats for many reasons. First of all, you've probably seen, I think down in Regents, there's the big solar farm, and they have their sheep that eat the grass around the solar panels. So, we could have the goats around the solar panels to keep the grass down. And also, like, interacting with living creatures can help promote, like, empathy in students. And we could do, like, scientific experiments with the goats, like, on the, like, measure them or something. And also they're goats, and goats are great, so, I mean, what more reason do you need?
Thank you, guys.
Questions for these representatives of our students?
I actually have a question if I could start off. Have you guys approached your administration with any of these very interesting ideas that you had for improving moms?
They've actually approached both of us. Part of the Individuals in Societies projects this year, students picked, I'm looking, I know I received solar panel advocacy letters and goat information, and so students had put together their research and their proposals and brought them forward, yes. There is a laundry list of wonderful ideas.
So perhaps some of them might be implemented.
Yes.
I'm not sure about the goats right now, but who knows. Anyone else? Suzanne?
So your garden idea was really unique and I think a great idea, but I'm wondering, have you reached out to the people that run the greenhouse at the Career Center? And they could probably possibly start you on your way.
I also just wanted to add something about the goats. If we did get goats, then it could provide like goat milk, and then we could make like goat cheese off of them. So that would definitely help for like the school cafeteria program.
Suzanne, to answer your question, no, we have not yet.
Okay, Mary, I have a question. So you're here for 2 years and you seem to really love it, which is wonderful. You have so many great ideas. Do you think a third year here, maybe not for you, but maybe if you start earlier, would that have been beneficial? Or do you think that would have been a positive thing or not?
I think it would have been, because then we have like more opportunity to like meet new people like earlier on, and yeah, stuff like that.
But also, some people just really like the small school community because there's not like too many people here. Like, I know most of the people in the school.
Okay. So you consider this a small school community?
Any other questions?
No, but there is a school up north that does have goats.
Ah, lucky.
Yes. It was a class project and it was pretty interesting, but they did this.
Could require a mascot change.
It could.
At least they didn't ask for a time.
But somebody did have to take it home for the summer and take care of it. So that was one of the issues.
And protect it from the garden, because they're not too compatible.
Yeah, they have pretty separate campuses. But good idea.
Any other questions for our students?
I want to just add what Chris was saying about the PIPs and students at MUMS thinking ahead and really being proactive. It's been really exciting to read those. To talk with some of the students too, and there is a whole list of ideas they have, and they're great ideas that, you know, hopefully this new group, which is in year one, can help to really start to bring forward and structurally help to move some of these things. And I know you've got a great principal who really is going to be listening to ideas you all have.
We also didn't mention, but we also now have a social activism group here at MUMS, which was not actually included in our activities, Students who came forward wanting to establish a group here for all viewpoints to be heard, to talk about social issues, and it is just plain a fabulous group to join and listen to their thoughts as well.
Also, just wanted to add one more thing. This
No,
was another-
no more goats.
Not about goats. There's one more thing about well, Henry had a really good idea that I heard was we have a windmill turbine thing, and then on the things that go around, you put solar panels on them. So that was a really good idea.
You are our future.
Awesome job, guys.
Thank you guys all
Thank you,
for
student
coming.
ambassadors.
Here's,
Thank you to our
I'll try and run. No, report to the superintendent. I don't know. He sent it out to us.
So, next on the agenda is the board report. So, we all have that in our packet. Peter, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to highlight for the public?
For the folks that are here.
Or folks that are here.
I mean, I think we've got a lot going on right now, and if you read through what's happening in all of our schools, it's a really fun and exciting time where we're in a time of culmination where we're looking at all the work that we've done, we're celebrating and also looking ahead. I think when you read through and see what's going on in each of our schools, it's pretty amazing. I think we have a really vital district, and it's reflected every month, but I think right now when you see just kind of how people are coming together at the end of the year and acknowledging what students have done and kind of how far they've traveled in here, it's really makes me feel grateful to be here.
Are there any questions for Peter on the board report?
Can I give a shout out to George and invite the girl?
Yeah, George.
Very impressive.
I just want to thank the principals and your staff for putting together such an extensive review of what's going on. It is truly amazing. But when I hear the student talk about the level of stress, I also wonder about the level of stress on staff to produce this. I mean, you do a lot. There's no downtime in your staff or the kids. There's a lot of energy put into it. So I think they need to be recognized, which I know you do. And I think we need to listen to our student for everybody's benefit.
I had the same thought when the student presented the stress component relative to not just the students, but everybody who is functioning within the district. All of us know it's just much more complicated now. And we have many other jurisdictions that we're trying to deal with, be they teachers or anybody else. So even though the simplistic answer to or question that one of the students had was coordination between teachers so that one teacher's project wasn't due at the same time as another's. I mean, obviously that takes a huge amount of coordination, but in actual fact, that's what systems have to try to do. So the same thought came to mind, just this whole thing of stress. We can sort of say, well, that's how you get through the sort of West Point. If you make it through plebe here, you'll survive. But in actual fact, to me, it's very different now than I think it was at some other times. Just have that feeling. If students say that, to me, then it's different.
Well, I think schools have taken on a different role now, and we're carrying a lot of the social service work too, and that's really challenging work as well. So when you look at the academic mission that we have, then you also look at the social and emotional work that we're doing. It's hard to carry all of that, and we're not resourced really to do all of that. So actually, this year has been a year where with staff we've been doing a lot of trauma training both to help them support students, but also to take care of each other. And that's work that will continue probably as one of our main objectives through the systems foundational goal and the strategic plan next year as we work on our systems of services and retool that, is being sure that we're taking care of each other and not duplicating efforts, not just kind of using our energy to where it's best served. But certainly that has been a conversation, I think, for staff. And it's not just this year. I would say it's over the last, to me, it feels like the last 3 years or so, and it seems like each year it's increasing a little bit, and it's something that we have to continue to work on and connect together. And it's certainly something in the strategic plan report I wrote about our progress in the summary and where we've gone and reflected on capacity. And one of the things I wrote about was that there are lots of things we know we should do and could do, but we also have to balance that with capacity of doing the right things right now and doing them well. And oftentimes in schools, when you have lots of voices, when you're a public entity, everyone has a different idea of what you should be doing. And it's very easy to justify doing 100 things when you could do 3 really well. So that's also something that I think is guiding our work in the final year of the strategic plan as we think about planning out the next 5 years, is staying attuned to that capacity question and building on what we know, as opposed to moving in a different direction next year than this year because I went to a conference and heard something great.
Slow the train down a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
We're at such an accelerated pace, and it's obviously, our students are feeling it, and I think we need to step back and say, wait a minute, how fast do we need to go?
Yeah. I think that's also a cultural issue in that kids are overscheduled.
Right.
Sports are much more specialized now. Instead of playing a sport in season, now you're playing it all year. So I think we also have to look at homework. I know Dahlia spoke well about homework tonight and the research she did. And it's something that we haven't come together as a district on a homework policy, but I think it's probably on the horizon in thinking about how many hours do we want students committed to that. And of course, every student does it differently. I mean, when I reflect on myself as a parent, I have one student who's really fast, and one of my children does really well, but takes 4 times as long to do it. So I have to be aware of that as well.
Any other questions or comments for Peter on the board report?
Finish right into the report.
Just right into the strategic plan.
Okay.
We have a computer hooked up.
Yeah, that's hooked up. So as Caitlin's getting ready with a few slides, and Caitlin did the lion's share of the organization of this report, so I want to give her a shout out. I think it's really well done. This is year 4 of our 5-year strategic plan, and each year we have a mid-year report, which is more of a narrative in looking at the work that we've done and referencing the goals kind of more broadly. The end of your report, which is in front of you, is really a distillation of all of the work we've done. We're trying to keep track of each objective that we set out. As you read through it, it can be a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of information there, and we actually, in talking, we're talking about should we try to streamline this and make it simpler, but then we don't want to leave anything out. These are objectives that the community and many people on action teams who put the different parts of the strategic plan together laid out for us. So we kind of want to speak to them. So anyway, we're kind of in process in terms of how we present it and present those objectives. The structure of the report, are you going to talk about the structure of the report, or do you want me to?
You say anything you want and I'll fill it.
Okay. Easy. The structure of the report really goes through first an executive summary, a look at all of the 3 foundational goals and the different objectives, and then finishes with the key performance indicators and the data, looking at how we're doing based against kindergarten readiness, cohort grad rate, the personalized learning data, and the SBAC. And the rationale behind what are called KPIs was to have some kind of measure where we could be tracking. And of course, anytime we bring everything we're doing down to some test scores, we know that we're limiting the field greatly. But it does give us at least one benchmark of the many benchmarks that both quantitatively and qualitatively we're using to assess how we're doing. Going through, just in terms of the executive summary, this past year we continued through the IB authorization process. It's been, I think, a really exciting year of learning and expression. I've seen in visits to classrooms and schools so many different ways that students are engaging, I think, differently than they did previously. And I'm feeling that there's more voice in the classroom, which is really, really exciting. So that has to do with inquiry and kind of the structure of how units are being designed. In terms of our authorization timeline, we actually just heard, and I sent a note to the board last week, we just heard that we have been authorized for the diploma program, which is super exciting. So that's a really big milestone. Our other two programs are going to be mid-year next year, and then the end of the year for the PYP. So the primary years program will be the last program. We are getting great feedback from International Baccalaureate in terms of what they see when they come. They're always really impressed by the work. They're most impressed by our staff and the level of professionalism and kind of the skill they're able to render in these pedagogical conversations, which is I would totally echo. We are also, this year was a big year with a personalized learning grant, a Flexible Pathways grant, and we were able to partner with the Hannaford Career Center, which is a relationship we've talked about a lot, but we haven't had really a lot that was actionable to talk about, to say, here's how we're connecting the two together. Unfortunately, historically, they've kind of been siloed, and we know that we're serving the same students and we have the same aims, and we really need to be connected. So they have been part of a process looking at the International Baccalaureate career-related program. That work is underway. They've had visits from consultants from International Baccalaureate, and that is moving forward as we speak. I'm not sure what the exact timeline is. Do you know, Caitlin?
They're about 2 years behind us, behind our diploma program.
Okay. So that is really exciting, and that would give us a structural connection with the Career Center that would sustain itself. That wouldn't be reliant on me or someone else to keep it going. And I think in a lot of ways, with a lot of the work that we're doing, we're trying to make our work sustainable, not from a person, but from how it's structured. That's how we can kind of build it and grow it. We also are continuing to work with Middlebury College and the partnership that we established with them 2 years ago. Out of that has arisen a professional development collaboration, which is kind of beginning in earnest next year. They're offering a course for our teachers, and which is designed around the International Baccalaureate. So that connection we have through International Baccalaureate is really exciting, and it's definitely growing. We this year spent a lot of time working on different aspects of our system of services. I mentioned the trauma training, and we had a number of teachers go through a level 1 training, and we had some other teachers that have received a level 2 training, and we're looking at how to build that out throughout the district. There's a lot of desire to continue that training for all teachers and really embed it in our culture, and we see that as a real need to support all students. So that's something that we worked on pretty intently this year, and will continue as we look at, Vicki and I are co-leading a system of services design team right now, and that work is focused on looking at our behavioral systems, our intervention systems, and our social emotional supports, and figuring out how to align those across our district, no matter what the size of the school or the level of the school, so that there's a pre-K through 12 continuum. We're hoping to have some of that work culminate in the winter so that we can start making decisions in our budget to fund the vision of where we see this best serving our students. So that's really important work that has happened throughout this year and will continue into next year. When you look at the key performance indicators and our data, we're looking at the data disaggregated, and we're really focused on how all of our students are doing, and we're trying to look at them separately. And as we look at that, we know that we have, at least with our free and reduced lunch eligible students versus our non-free and reduced lunch eligible students, we've got a pretty big gap, and when you look through the report, you can see that gap is significant in some grades. That's not a new thing. It didn't just happen. It's endemic to our district, and I think most other districts, and without really focusing on it, we're not going to turn it. So that's work that this, with the systems goal and the strategic plan, I imagine some semblance of that will be carried forward in the next strategic plan as we next year start to rework our vision for the next 5 years. Community work has continued and is really pretty exciting. The partnership teams were in 4 elementary schools this year. They're going to be in all elementary schools and MUMs next year. And that's really growing. The Community Partnership Council, which I've talked about previously, has also done a lot of work and continues. The biggest thing, or a couple things, a mentoring program is taking shape, which is going to be starting here. And then we're also, the school-based health center at MUHS will be opening, and that's probably 15 years in the making, because they've tried to get that going a number of times, and I think it was the Partnership Council that was able to finally kind of push it over the edge. That is opening in December, which is really, really cool. I'm going to let Caitlin talk a little bit about the plan structure and anything I didn't touch on.
Yeah, I think I'll be really brief. This is not the kind of document you're likely to sit down and read cover to cover. It's really detailed. I think that, though, it's useful to understand how it's built, because these live on our website and they become interesting resources. So if you're looking for such and such data point, it's nice to know whether or not it's there and at your fingertips. So I want to tell you how this thing is built. The executive summary really goes through a lot of what Peter just said, but it starts by, anchoring the work back into the 2014-15 community process for building the strategic plan, which predates my time in the district. And then it describes in very broad strokes the work that we've done over the past 4 years, some of the big things that we've accomplished in these past 4 years. And then it has the narrative sections, which you see both in the mid-year report and then again at the end of your report, an update on those, just where we're going, what we have accomplished, aligned with each of those strategic actions. And then it sort of looks ahead. It opens with demographics. So you have on page 4, town populations looking back from 2011 and through 2017 and showing the change at the town and district level in population. It has school enrollments for this current school year. Those numbers are as of May on page 5. And then on pages 6 and 7, it shows a little bit more demographic information in terms of distribution across race, eligibility for free and reduced price lunch by town, and then percent of students who are accessing various types of learning plans in different schools. And you'll see throughout this, that's on page 7, throughout this document there's data that's omitted. So the standard practice in Vermont is if the N size, if the number of students drops below 11, we don't report the data to protect student privacy. So that's just a pattern you'll see consistently when we report data. And then there are a few pages updating each of those action steps for each of our 3 goals. So the first goal, written again 4 years ago now, was we will build a culture of innovation and continuous improvement that personalizes learning experiences, provides equitable opportunities, and results in high learning outcomes and achievement for all students. And if you want to know how we've been doing that, you look at pages 8 to 10 of this document. It shows what our marching orders were from the strategic plan, and then an update on where we are in that process. The next goal, those are the various learning objectives. So it's disaggregated the learning outcomes, instructional framework, instructional practices and design, and curriculum and assessment. So the second goal is community. We'll engage our communities to improve outcomes for all students. We've got 4 pages of information about how we're doing along those strategic actions. And then the next section is systems. We will develop operational and educational systems to support learning for all students. This has been a huge project as we've transitioned from ACSU to ACSD, and it's a work in progress. We're still cleaning up and constructing systems, and this also points to what Peter was talking about with designing systems that aren't anchored to a single human, right? We need to build systems that are robust enough to see us through turnover. So from there, you get into the data. And we've learned some things in 3 years of producing these reports. One is that June really isn't a great time to be sharing data, because the Ready for Kindergarten survey will come out later this month or maybe in July. And so last year, and I will do it again this year, I updated the report and updated it online when I had that new data. So you should look for updates on that this summer. The cohort graduation rates normally would have been published by now, but the Agency of Education, because of their data struggles this year, weren't able to produce that data point for us. I looked online again today just to make sure that it hadn't been published yet, because they said sometime in June. So I'll keep looking for that information, and we'll update the report accordingly. A lot of districts I have found do this data-rich report in the fall. And I think we won't make that shift for next year because we'll want to stay consistent as we continue reporting out on this particular strategic plan. But it's something I'm interested in looking at in the future, is when is the right time to share data so that we're not saying pending updates when we report out. SBAC results, so the most current SBAC results in this report are from last spring. We have wrapped up our SBAC testing and also our Vermont State Assessment, or our Science Assessment and our PE Assessment, which are both have rolled out, piloted, and now been implemented this year. All of that is done, but we won't get those results until midsummer or early fall. So this report includes data from 2016, 2017, and 2018. This is the first year that the AOE told us that this is comparable data. Before that, they said consider it pilot implementation, and by 2016, they felt they had worked out the kinks and standardized it enough that they said this is data you can use for looking at trends over time. So that's what we've done. So we show our proficiency rates in English language arts and in math. We compare ACSD to Vermont across grade levels and subject areas. We look at trends by cohort. So last year's if we look at 2016's third graders, we're 2017's fourth graders, we're 2018's fifth graders. There's a table in there that shows that cohort and how they've done on each of those tests. And then this is what Peter was talking about, the economic disadvantage gap. We look at proficiency rates for students eligible for free and reduced price lunch versus students not eligible for free and reduced price lunch. And those are patterns that we commonly see in education data, that gap in achievement, and we see it also here. And so we actually have in our continuous improvement plans, which you've seen the district level continuous improvement plan goals, to narrow that gap by raising the achievement of those students who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. And we're working on that actively, both through looking at universal design for learning for stronger Tier 1 instruction as we build our IB curriculum, but also really diving deeply into this design teamwork that Peter and Vicki are leading, thinking about systems of support for students who struggle for any reason, not just economic disadvantage. There are tables of personalized learning, flexible pathways, and citizenship, and I don't think we have the PIPs in that table. So we've missed some data that's worth picking up for next year and updating. You will see both the reported data from school leaders about participation in various opportunities that we offer for students, some new, some discontinued. You'll see them over a couple of years so you can look at those patterns. And then you'll also see survey responses from students on page 34. As part of our equity audit, we asked a series of questions to gauge the extent to which students self-identified as engaged and inspired learners. And you can see on page 34 the questions, the survey items that fell under that category that seem like they relate to this personalized learning, or so that the concept is, and this was written into our AOE grant on flexible pathways and personalized learning, that the premise is that if we successfully engage students in more and more vibrant personalized learning experiences and give them more and more equitable access to flexible pathways to graduation, ideally what we will see is we will have students who self-report as being more engaged and more inspired over time. So this is baseline data that we are reporting with our grant report. Youth Risk Behavior Survey is conducted every 2 years. So the most recent data we have is from 2017. We just took the survey again. Our middle and high school students took the survey again in 2019. So by this time next year, we hope to have the 2019 data in there. And you'll see that we track various items over time as proxy items to gauge the extent to which students feel safe and feel that they belong in our schools. And you'll see also on page 37 some more of our own collected data from that same equity audit survey. From that engaged and inspired learners. So we felt like the items that say, I feel prepared to face challenges in my life, I'm proud of myself, I like who I am, I can look in the mirror and smile at who I see, those seem to be valuable data points to look at when we're thinking about how much do our students feel like they're safe and they belong in our schools. So we've added that to supplement the YRDS data. It's also important to supplement the YRDS data because that measure is only at the middle school and the high school, so it doesn't tell us anything about our various elementary schools. Our equity audit we conducted among all students as young as 5th grade through 12. So that's the structure of this. And again, I think that it's a useful reference document. If somebody says, well, what's been happening along these lines, you have this at your fingertips, and years of them now posted online, so you can go back and look for speaking points or point people to where they can find more information. Any questions?
I have a question. An amazing amount of stuff in here, and it's taking some time to digest it all. One of the questions I have in the different action steps or objectives you have progress, where your progress is, and a lot of it's ongoing, in process, etc. A couple are completed, I think, in the system section. Is there a place where you'll be able to say you've evaluated, you've done it, you've evaluated, it's no longer ongoing, and you can say, this worked. We see positive in this, or maybe it didn't work as well as we'd like, so we're going to adjust.
Yeah, I think that's an important question. And part of me wants to say, well, we should look at each of those items. They're measurable to different extents. Mm-hmm. Some of them are quite measurable. Some of them are much more anecdotal. To some extent, there are so many of them that I don't think we have the capacity to evaluate every one of those. And I think that that's a really important question to ask as we're going into the process of writing a new strategic plan, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll want to be able to say, as objectively as possible, what we did accomplish, what's done, what do we put behind us and move on, and what are the things that we need to now pick up, collect new baseline data and move forward. And I think we should design with evaluation in mind when we write our next strategic plan.
Well, and we talked a lot about that in the creation of this one, but what we realized soon after jumping into that inquiry was that we didn't have a system to accurately assess how we were doing.
Right.
So if you look at the work, I would say the first 2 years of this particular plan was primarily building something that we could then evaluate.
Right.
And I think we've made some good progress, but I think Caitlin's right that some of those things are completed and they're done and we don't need to evaluate them anymore, but they've become part of a greater system that we're evaluating.
Right.
So when you look, you can, so there are 3 or 4 objectives that might connect back to the role of the central office in providing support to all the schools in different ways. And so then how do we assess the central office and the work that we're doing? So some of them are kind of taken up into kind of larger areas that we are evaluating. But I think that evaluative culture is really important, and
Because just
having it be
because
a
you've completed the
reflective
task
process.
doesn't mean you've got where you want to go,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? So by looking at it, does it need to be tweaked at all? Is it, no, this is really working and we can continue on this, or, wow, this didn't work at all, let's try a different path. That's the only, because it's such an extensive list of tasks and objectives that you've done. It's an amazing amount of work. But I just wondered about the evaluation now that you've been in it for a while.
Yeah, and I think that, looking at key performance indicators is a stab at that. And and we selected them in terms of looking at kindergarten readiness to cohort graduation. Those 2 are next to each other on purpose. How are our students doing as they arrive with us, and how are they doing as they exit our system? But then looking at both the quantitative data of the SBAC scores, qualitative data of the personalization, and then looking at the measures for sense of safety and belonging. The goal was to get any one of those, it's just a snapshot, but how do we develop an evaluation model that's a little bit more 3-dimensional? I don't think that that's perfect. I think it's a start. And so I'm not sure whether we will want to have an evaluation model for each of the action items or a more holistic evaluation model that gives us a better sense of how all of these things together are getting to the outcomes we're aiming for. I think it's an important conversation for us to keep having. And if you have insights,
I just want to remark on it. That's all. But the other thing I noticed in the SBAC results is that sometimes they're doing very well and then cohort sort of falls off a little bit. But what's remarkable is I was looking at sort of the graduation rates across the country, and Vermont is like number 2 after maybe New Jersey in terms of numbers of kids graduating from high school within 5 years. But the fact that only 45% are proficient or proficient with distinction in a lot of the categories, I'm wondering, are we looking at the right standard in terms of, are the proficiency standards too high, or are we not, do we need to push a little higher? I mean, I was just astounded how the achievement level or how they scored on the SBAC. Based on we're better than most of the state of Vermont. I mean, that's pretty admirable. But the fact that only maybe 50% of the kids are proficient, that's kind of shocking.
That's been pretty steady.
I know.
Over a long time in a lot of states too, not just in Vermont. And it's true in higher ed as well.
Right.
In terms
We're
of,
pushing kids through, but we're not teaching.
it's a lot more complicated
It's
than that,
complicated,
actually.
And it's also the way they take it, what effort they really put
I mean, I know the testing, that's why I think when you're looking at the whole of the student, you can't just take those test results.
Right.
It's all the other performance indicators that so, by putting in other performance indicators, I think might be helpful too.
Looking at more data points.
More
There's there's far more data we can draw.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Chip, did you have a question?
Well, it's always sort of really confusing because not so much how you present it, it's just every single topic has a branching out into multiple topics, and then we get into trying to assess how we do. Well, obviously, if we had the right, if we did something and 100% of the students got the result that we wanted, well, then we say, we figured this out. Well, we're never going to figure them out. Right? We're always going to be chasing every one of these. So I think at times you can get sort of tied up in all these finite little deal. To me, it seems better to look at the holistic component, maybe made up of all of these, but it's obvious a lot of people have been trying to do all this in a lot of states and a lot of schools for a long time. And it hasn't gotten to 100% or 80%, and it's discouraging when some of these numbers are low, but it's not like for lack of trying, I don't think.
But I think we're measuring the wrong things sometimes.
Well, that's my point of
Yeah.
trying to, however we encompass more of a holistic component is that, what's that student like when they finish high school? And some of those questions relative, do I know where I'm going? Well, I don't know if I knew where I was going finishing high school, and I was pretty directed. So, I mean, I think that you can answer that in a lot of different ways. From the point of view, I'm totally lost, or I don't know what I want to be, you know? So, I think those are helpful, but it's a great task, and I applaud you on putting it all together. I think to read it over is interesting, but it's also sort of overwhelming at times.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I don't have to tell you that.
I think our work here is done now.
No, I really, turns out I like writing reports, so that's useful. But I really would like to think about, in the next iteration of the strategic plan report, with the next strategic plan, what is the information that the board would really like to see? And I would love to get some more input and insight into that. So we've got some time to design a new iteration for a new plan, but I think these are really great questions that I find engaging. So let's come back to that, because there's tons of data we can draw from, and we'll want to be thoughtful about it.
Any other questions for Caitlin or Peter?
Thank you, good presentation.
Thank you, yeah, Caitlin.
Thanks.
And you provide some really excellent information in this report.
Thanks.
So, okay, well, we're on to facilities master plan. Our tonight's discussion is going to change a little bit from what we had originally talked about, because so many of us are missing, 5 people missing. I talked to Peter Collin earlier today, and he felt that perhaps we should just focus on since we're here at Moms, to focus on the 6th grade conversation and the other things we're going to talk about until our next meeting. So that's what we're going to do, and people were asked to review the grade configuration report that we received it's been a while.
2 meetings ago?
Well, the original report was
Okay.
a while ago.
2017,
Yeah.
This
June
time, 2 years ago.
2017.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to open it up for questions, but first I thought perhaps Chris or Peter, if you wanted to refresh the memories of people who are not on the board or have recently seen this report as to what the plans were to incorporate the 6th grade into the MUMS system.
Certainly. In the 2016-2017 school year, the PYP and MYP design teams spent much of a year looking at the question of whether or not 6th grade should join MUMS. Both design teams did come forward with a recommendation that they did feel that that was in the best interest of 6th graders. At the time, a group here at MUMS worked on possible options for how that could look. Currently, we are a 2-grade, fully looping, fully teamed school. And within our current space structures, it would be difficult to keep that exact same model. And we also had questions about, while there is research out there to talk about the benefits of looping at the middle school level, there's not such absolute clear data to say that it is necessary that we looked at different options. At the time those design teams finished their work, our recommendation was that 6th grade move to MUMS, that 6th grade be a standalone grade in one wing of the building. Structurally in this building, the way it would be easiest would be to be in this hallway. And then that 7th and 8th grade would continue to have one looping team at each grade level. And then there would be one other looping team that would have both 7th and 8th graders on it. Right now, we have 2 teams at both 7th grade and 8th grade, and they loop for 2 years. So this would in effect keep 4 teams, but in a slightly different configuration.
And the final part, just I'll add to the final part of the report, in 2017, my recommendation was the board to not move forward, even though the recommendations from both design teams had said yes. And I articulated that, as you recall, in the summary, in looking at where we were as a new district at that point. And I recommended that the board look at this more broadly, given the impact on some of our smaller schools, that has to be taken into account as the board looks at 6th grade.
So, because this does potentially make a decision on whether or not to move the 6th grade moms on the facilities master plan, that's why it's in there, and why we're talking about it tonight. And so if anybody has any questions from that report you'd like to address to Chris, I'm sure she would love to answer them.
Absolutely.
I had a couple questions that I just remember I think it's stated in the report, but when we got community feedback, some of the biggest concerns were around class size and whether or not moving 6th grade would impact the size of individual classes, not grades, but individual classes. Is that something that you looked at?
I don't actually have the numbers of what it would look like specifically. It would increase class sizes because we would be adding an additional large number of students to the building. However, MUM's class sizes continue to be very small at this point. And so in looking at it, that was one of the major concerns. The other major concern was how to make sure that 6th graders were ready for that sort of a transition and how to allow them to transition in somewhat of a separate manner to make sure that students felt safe and supported. Those were the 2 most often raised concerns.
And then another question was around, I think it said there was going to be a team of teachers who one teacher would teach both English and social studies, and one would teach math and science. Are those new FTEs, or is that within the...
That was in the portion of the proposal that talked about 6th grade being a standalone grade.
Right.
And that 6th grade, the licensure at the elementary level is different than the licensure at the middle level.
Yep.
And so we actually hadn't determined at that point what would need to happen in moving the current 7th and 8th grade from 4 teams to 3 teams. There would be a reduction in staffing there, but how that would all sort of move through the process.
Right. Okay. Well, if anyone else has.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
So I think it builds off of Victoria's question, and now obviously there's been some time since that really intensive study. You might have just had some ad hoc conversations over the course of this year. Do you foresee wanting or needing to have more conversations this year if it is a recommendation from the facilities master plan? And if you do see a need for it, do you feel like your staff has the capacity to have that conversation again this year?
I believe that my staff always has the capacity to handle anything that comes their way. I think they showed that this year as they went through some incredible struggles. Having said that, I do feel that I've been very vocal about how much I would like to have 6th grade join MUMs. I believe in it wholeheartedly from an educational standpoint. Having said that, I also feel that anything like that we're going to do, we want to do very well. And in doing so, we want to have it comprehensively planned. I do admit to a little bit of nervousness about if that is the decision of the board to move forward with moving 6th grade here, making sure that we have the time needed to do it well. And also, absolutely, totally, for that first group of 6th graders that would join us, to have it be the inaugural class, the class that celebrates being the change, and making sure we can do that well instead of them feeling that they're sort of an experiment.
So if this might be then a conversation that needs to take place longer over the summer, is because the recommendation would probably come later in the summer. So I think as a board, we want to be considerate of that situation, and so if a recommendation comes out, the time frame is going to be dependent on being able to do it right. So I guess keeping the communication open with you as far as if this is something that's going to move forward, if we see it as our conversations move forward, to keep in touch with you regarding how that timing will be best.
Absolutely.
So that you don't feel rushed.
Yes.
The second question has to do with IB and where we are with IB right now and how that will be an added impact for the MYP program to switch gears a bit from where it has been and where you've all been focusing your energies moving forward. Do you see that as an issue?
I see it as an opportunity.
Great.
MYP is a 5-year program. We are doing it in 4 years.
Okay.
Having 6th grade join us right now, 6th grade is in PYP buildings, but really in pure IB thought should be in an MYP program. We would love to welcome them in, and we have talked as an IB secondary leadership team about how we would do adjustments to the MYP to make that happen.
Thank you.
Do you think this building has the capacity to hold 130 more students?
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, obviously the students love being here. So would the 6th graders be able to be incorporated into all these activities that they talk about as well?
Absolutely. That was in our original proposal right from the very beginning, was that in the mindset of providing equitable experience, providing equity in our experiences for students, 6th grade could come here and have all of those activities, music, performing groups, all of those pieces more consistently.
And you would have the staff to add on this extra group of students?
Yes.
So you wouldn't have to add extra staff?
The one piece I feel we might need to look at in terms of staffing would be to look at the support services needs, language acquisition. Right now, we did increase our French and Spanish teaching time for this coming school year. Even doing that, we are pushing the limits of those class sizes, and so we would need to look at additional staffing in language acquisition.
Other questions for Chris? Chris, thank you.
I had one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had a comment more than a question. And, you know, since superintendent sort of delayed this decision back, whenever it was, 2 years ago now? Yeah. You know, I sort of...
Technically the board did.
Yeah, I know, on the board. No, the board did, but I mean, but in actual fact, that was what happened, and which many of us supported, even though we may have supported the concept. I've sort of talked around with people in different places, and I get the impression that by and large, parents with students of that age, irrespective of some of the other issues, feel educationally that it's a good idea. I mean, just in a very anecdotal, gosh, they are so ready to be out of here type of thought. And as a 6th grader. Now, obviously that may vary a lot as the student, for sure, but I just get that impression in talking, not in a scientific way, and that's comforting to some degree, because I think, just as we heard the students talk earlier, they can be frank in their sixth grade way, I think, in being able to tell us that. And maybe educationally that is, again, with all the data and everything else, it's something that you feel, okay, this makes sense too. For me, anyway.
Anything else? Next on the agenda is our discussion on the comprehensive wellness policy.
We were going to have a discussion about it today. The draft was here. We met the team at our last board work meeting, and we corrected some of the terminology that was people were concerned about. And so this is your opportunity to ask us some questions, I guess, and then we hope to vote on it at the end of this month. So it's a comprehensive wellness, holistic wellness policy that was developed through the community partnership. And then we, Vicki and I and the policy group sat with them and kind of worked on it. So we presented it. It does talk a lot about what the students were talking about in their presentation today, about the need for more movement, the need to be outside doing more things, less stress, the food service. I mean, it addresses a lot of the items that the students brought up that they would like to see changed. So I thought it was interesting that it sort of melded with what students wanted. Yes?
One, thank you. I think it really, some of my concerns from the last iteration, I feel were addressed in this new version. I do have 3 questions.
Okay.
One, the italic part of that, is that because it's straight from state
That's from
statute? That's what I assumed.
And the board had wanted it very clear,
Yep.
which was which.
Yep. And then in the page 2B, where you talk about health education is going to be by appropriately licensed.
be conducted by appropriately licensed staff members. Yes.
What is appropriate? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, teachers have endorsement in certain specialty areas. And my understanding, and Vicki, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Peter, 7th through 12th grade has to be endorsed with a health educator's license. Okay. In the 6th grade, or K through 6, or pre-K through 6, the classroom teacher can deliver the curriculum. Okay.
Okay. Or
a school nurse, or the guidance counselor. Yep. Phys ed.
Okay. And then in the nutrition part, I noticed there's no mention of food allergies. And I thought that this would be an appropriate place to have some sort of guideline around food allergies.
Would you pick that up? I hadn't.
Would it, I didn't pick that up, but in fact, it's such a big issue in all level of schools. Is it something that would actually be appropriate in a separate policy?
I don't know.
I know that, but I'm just trying to, because in fact, a lot of this is, I mean, we can agree on it.
Yeah.
The food allergy and how it affects everybody. The student who has the allergy, the parent who has the student who has the allergy, and the other students in the class who don't have allergy, it becomes not only a health issue, but a political issue.
Well, is it even a legal issue? Is it even a policy, or is it the law that?
I think it's a law that we have to provide any life-threatening accommodation. Any child with a life-threatening condition, the accommodations are made for that student.
Right.
So I think there's a law on that, I know.
But I don't know whether that fits in under general way or whether it would be addressed in a more specific way.
Yeah.
Even though it may be boilerplate, it just addressed, I don't know.
What were you thinking in terms of what the policy would
Well,
state?
I don't know, it just felt that there was a lot about the types of food that were served and when they could be served, and I know, having a child with food allergies, that there's not a boilerplate policy or procedure at the schools he's been at that guide what a teacher does with a student with food allergy in regards to whether it's field trips or class parties or things that people can bring in, or
There is an exposure, there is a plan that every student who has a diagnosis or...
health plan, but I would see
Yeah.
procedures in the development of that to address when an allergy comes into play, or the responsibilities of not only the nurse but the school in developing the health plan.
Right.
Just
Policy. Right.
Well, we could even state something to the effect of individualized health plans will, establish procedures and guidelines to something, I mean, it could make a statement to codify that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it if it were in there too, just to make that statement about it. But I know there's other statutes or laws to provide the accommodations.
Right, it might involve
Some
looking
are
at the law to make
504
sure we're not.
plans.
Some of them are 504, but some of them are...
Right, some are individual health plans.
Right.
Yep.
But it probably wouldn't hurt to have it in the policy.
And we do have some of that information currently existing in handbooks.
Right. Right. I thought that there was a policy several years ago.
a food allergy policy. There might be.
I don't remember seeing one.
There hasn't been a policy that I recall.
Procedures and guidelines?
There are procedures and guidelines that are different across schools, but that I think we could definitely streamline and have one procedure for that. I'll look into it. Other questions?
Is it possible to have a notation that says what the bold italic versus the regular font?
There was.
I wasn't able to find it, even that was the same question that I had, was what does it mean?
I didn't find it either.
Yeah, we can put that at the bottom, because we thought that there had been. So will this policy come up for a vote the next time we look at it?
We were hoping it would come up for a vote at the end of this month, but if we feel like we need more time to make these adjustments. What do you think, Peter?
It may be good to, one more time,
Okay.
review is my feeling.
All right.
And does, I'm just thinking, maybe this is totally up, is the establishment of the health clinic or center at the high school, will that impact any of this?
We're working on procedures for that
Okay.
right now through the Partnership Council.
Yep.
So we think that those procedures and this policy will be
Together will be implemented.
work, yeah.
There was a few things that came up before, and this is always in a lot of policies, in that you want to be specific enough to function, but you don't want to be so locked in specific that you step on your toes constantly. So I guess I'm not a wordsmithing person that likes to sit and figure out all the wills and shalls, but I just think that's really important in this. And obviously in special education, that comes up a lot, I would expect. So I would hope that maybe in your role, to make sure that we're not locking ourselves in a way that's sort of untenable.
Yeah, and that's what we spent a lot of that time last meeting going over.
I know that, and I didn't keep track of it all as to which words would change. But if I had, I would have had the research to look at each.
No, I had that same, and I felt that this, the whole feeling of it moved away from.
Right. Yeah, well, I felt better about this, absolutely, but it seems to be different than other policies.
Well, it's very, it's broad and it's out,
But
it's sort of
broad
outside,
specific, that's the trouble.
it's outside the economic, or outside the
Yeah, I know.
educational
Right.
mission because it incorporates preparing students to be physically and emotionally well enough to
Right.
be in school. So it's a broader reach.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else for Mary? Okay. Thank you,
So we'll
Mary.
have one more go around and
One
then
more go around.
vote on it
In July.
in July. Got it.
Too bad, but we want to get it right.
We do, we want to get it right. It's okay.
I've got some notes.
And thank you, Mary, and committee. Okay, and
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
so, all right. Which brings us to the end of our meeting, going into an executive session. Oh, I'm sorry, there is other. Thank you, Suzanne. Does anyone have any other?
Well, I was just wondering, you and I spoke on the phone, that last meeting when I wasn't able to attend, the next meeting was changed from a Monday night to a Tuesday night. And I am leading a group of New England states starting on the night of the 25th, so I'm not able to be here. So I was just wondering if there's any way we could revisit that issue and maybe possibly keep it on that Monday. I would really love to be here for it, and I did look at my agenda for my meeting at Linden State, and I'm actually meeting with 9 other people, so it might be very difficult for me to break away. Just my own question, thought.
Well, I think, what was it? It was, we did a show of hands and there were a lot of people missing on the 24th, right?
Peter wasn't sure he would be here, and I think,
We won't be here.
yeah, he said he would either be jet lagged
He's
or,
traveling.
and I think
There were a couple of
Amy or Mary was not able to be here.
And I think we tried to push it later in the week for more, because some people had a conflict then too,
Right,
and I
I
think
won't-
it
I
just
won't
kept getting
be
worse and worse as we kept moving through the options. I think going back to Monday is an option, and I'm not sure that moving forward was an option.
Yeah, with 5 people missing tonight, I'm not sure it's the time to try and vote to.
Yeah, well, it's just, we had decided, we had moved our meetings,
Yeah.
and so it worked perfect with us moving the meetings, that I was going to be in town, and I really tried very hard to keep my Mondays open, and then we start moving to other nights, it just causes more conflict. So I apologize.
The other thing that we did talk about also, Suzanne, is calling in for board meetings, because I know tonight Betty had an issue, and so I think that's a good reminder that if you can make a board meeting and are able to call in, obviously you're not going to go to that meeting.
No,
Have
if I can
another-
get all the other states,
But we, be sure to check in with Peter if you're not going to be able to be here and want to participate.
I just had one question that wasn't at all related, it's not other business, but I guess I wanted clarification on where the Hannaford Center is moving toward IB. I guess I had, the way it was described tonight, 2 years behind or whatever. Now, is that set in, has that been
so they are moving.
accepted?
No, they are moving forward in filling out their application.
Okay.
So the application will be submitted this fall, and they'll be in the same
But I meant,
process that we've
the
been.
board has okayed that process, is what or is that even happening now?
I'm not sure we've actually voted on it, but I know the board is very supportive of it.
Okay, well, that's all I was trying to get from both of you who
Yes.
were involved, as to what, because we're not necessarily, or I'm not aware of anything specific relative to the Hannaford board and
No,
directing it for
the
that
board
way.
as a whole is supportive of it. There are a few board members that want to see how the CP program will connect with what's going on in their own high schools.
Right,
So, but they're very supportive of it and wanting to see it move forward.
okay, that's, thank you.
I was curious about it too, and my question is does it actually tie in with the ACSD IB, or is it like a separate entity all of itself, or are they connected as separate? Thanks.
So when we wrote the grant, in partnership with the Career Center to the AOE, we thought that we were co-exploring what it would look like to partner with the Career Center to bring an IB career-related program, a CP, to Middlebury High School. So the high school would house the career program, we thought, in partnership with the Career Center. And when Jake Burnham, who was a engineering architecture teacher at the Career Center, and I went to an Understanding the IBCP workshop together, what we learned is that there's another model. So what we were thinking we were designing was a CP1, and what we learned about there was the CP2 model. The CP2 model allows for an institution that has no other IB programming to be authorized to offer the CP, designing it fully in-house at the Career Center. So we did a lot of back and forth thinking about what was the best model, and decided through that grant work that the Career Center is actually going to pursue the CP2 model. There are some pretty exciting things about that. Probably the most exciting thing for our students is that that's a much more holistic program. So the career-related studies are the strand of learning that they already have, whether it's sustainable agriculture or engineering or whatever. Those would be the CRS, the career-related studies. But then there's some coursework, and there's service learning, and there's language development, and there's a reflective project, which is really personalized. There are all of these different components that if they design them at the Career Center, they can be embedded within the career-related studies instead of separate from and just speaking back and forth. So they're building it there. The other exciting thing about that is that that program then is a complete program within the Career Center, so students from any sending school can access that and can get the IB CP certificate on top of their home institution's diploma. Okay. So that's the angle that they're going, and Suzanne spoke to the timeline. So again, we applied for authorization for the DP, we did our application for candidacy about 1.5 years ago. So you know, they're basically 2 years behind in their process. They've trained a lot of people. They've identified a CP coordinator. We've really had some thoughtful conversations. And our high school students will get to benefit from that if they choose to, and they'll have more diversity of learning opportunities because the career-related program requires students to take at least 2 diploma program courses. So they'll have to offer some at the Career Center, but our students will have more range to choose from because they have all of the ones offered at the high school.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if the student council members have any insights from witnessing a board meeting.
I do have one question. What is the CP program?
So, do you know what the IBDP is?
Yes,
the diploma program? So it is an alternative path to graduation. So with 11th and 12th grade, you could elect to choose to do the diploma program path or a career-related program path, which is an IB path that would go through the Career Center.
Can you do both? Right.
And you cannot do both. Well, that's not totally true. Either one of them is a full load. So if you say, I want the diploma, you're doing the diploma path. And if you say, I want the IB certificate, the CP certificate, that's a full load. If you said, I'm actually really interested in this diploma program course, I'm really interested in these career-related studies, I'm interested in this internship, you could sample and create your own pathway to graduation, but you wouldn't finish with one of those other credentials. You'd finish with a Middlebury High School diploma, just like all of your peers. Yeah.
Related to that, I was wondering if there was any time frame with the IB program in the Career Center that would sort of link the schedule with the Career Center to the schedule at the high school. Because I know a lot of students are struggling with taking both classes at the same time because you can't make it fit with your schedule and therefore they don't get to take certain classes.
So I believe, and maybe Principal Postman-Francoeur can echo because we sit in a lot of the same secondary leadership meetings, that the high school principals and the Career Center superintendent have been working pretty closely to align the schedules. So that's not really connected to IB, that's just connected to students struggling to make the schedules work, and the leaders of those institutions seeing that problem.
Yes.
So they've been troubleshooting that this year, and I'm hoping that some of that will be alleviated for next year.
I know they are as well.
Yeah,
We've
thank
also
you.
heard about that in the student council meetings with Mr. Lawson.
Oh, great, great.
I have one more question.
have it almost completed.
One more question. If you were to want to get a DP diploma or as a CP diploma, could you take like at the, like, one class of the other type? Like, is there any way to sample a little bit and still get that diploma that you want?
So you can't get the CP certificate without taking at least 2 IB diploma classes. So you sort of have to cross-pollinate in that scenario. In terms of if you're doing the diploma program, is it possible to sample at the Career Center? I don't know. I think you
Well,
there wouldn't technically be a rule against it. It's sort of the mechanics of
It's
the
just
day.
figuring it out, but I think as schedules align, that's going to become more possible.
It would be worth looking at sitting down with a school counselor and saying, so here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And see if they, or the diploma program coordinator, Cindy Atkins, and see if they can help you troubleshoot that. There are no rules against it. It just might be hard to fit it in.
And just vocab, what's PYP versus NYP?
PYP, yeah, we're horrible with acronyms.
And it's getting worse.
I think I'm fighting it, and then I'm making it worse.
It might be your primary year program.
So, yeah, primary years program, which is pre-K 6, and then middle years program, MYP, and that goes 7 through 10, and then 11, 12 is the diploma program.
So the fact that we're offering all 3 of them, and then ideally with
I mean,
GP2
that's
makes
the
us a
IB time, the same way we have.
We offer the whole continuum of IB programs.
So you still want to be on the school board?
Yeah.
Super
What's your honest take?
No, it's interesting. I like it.
They can leave and have vegetable soup conversations.
So can I point out, so one of the main concerns that we've had with adding a student school board member is not that we don't value your opinions, it speaks to the student stress that has been kind of, I think, an ongoing conversation tonight. And how do you fit everything in? And how do you come out at night? And these are long meetings, right? And this is actually a pretty quick one, but, which is great for you to be here at, but these can go until 9:30 or so. And so how do you see that working, with what you know about your schedules and other students' schedules? And how might you suggest, if, say a 3-hour meeting is too long, how could we work that in? Would it be, trying to structure it so that there are portions that would be more applicable to students at the beginning and then leaving? Or, how could you see making it work?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think every school board in some way, somehow, is related to a student. But I also agree, though, that in certain meetings, it may be more beneficial for that potential student rep, if you will, to be present. And I think down the road in an application process can clearly be stated that, this isn't, maybe an after-school club where you just, you hang out and you chit-chat. There's a little more board work and preparation, a little more dedication to that.
Having only been at one board meeting, I can't say this with certainty, but it's possible that as a non-voting member, there would just be board meetings where it wasn't really necessary or beneficial to have the student representative there. In which case, it could be good to be able to cycle, or just that they wouldn't have to show up there. And I think the commitment is a lot, but it's not too much. I mean, I could definitely fit this into my schedule. I could have fit it into my schedule this past year, even as a junior. Yeah. I do have one question, though, if nobody else has anything more to add on this specific subject.
No, I was just going to say, I really like your idea of giving close contact and letting the potential liaison know, like, when you're actually going to meet us.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add, as a student who's on parish council boards, which is similar to this, only longer with even more ancient people.
We were looking for
No offense, yeah, I think that what we talked about was alternating the person, and so they're communicating within the student body, and I guess one of the long-term goals would be to even, as a student liaison between the school board and our school, is to sort of bring the overwhelming schedule to the like, so that school board members can see how much of a, I guess, how to organize the schedule so that other students at the school can find a more manageable way to deal with time. And so I think it would be a sacrifice that would help others in the future. Oh, you said Ken?
Since we're on this question relative to questioning now, which I know you would, but I would think at one point when we have a policy, because we don't have one yet, correct? Then the appropriate thing when we formulate that is to have those students who are interested in it come back and then speak with us.
That's our plan.
That's the plan, right? But my question, I guess, would be that in the context of having had having student representatives on the Union District 3 board, the high school board in the past, this is obviously a board that's very different because our jurisdiction is over all the schools. And so I guess I wonder about whether in fact the student representative feels comfortable making comments or judgments relative, because you all went to elementary school like I did too, but about that whole process, because it's not just,
You're not just representing the
you're
high
just not
school, you're
representing,
all.
you're a student, obviously, we're not going to have fifth graders on the board, but on the other side, you're representing a wider range than what you're probably familiar with, and if that's okay.
I think that would speak to the benefits of having more than one student on the school board, just because then you have two elementary schools leading into it, or two different middle school team experiences, or year experiences. It'll be two different year experiences if we do it as a junior and a senior on the board. I think that could be very beneficial.
So the school board has jurisdiction over other high schools, right? Like,
No.
Is it just Middlebury? Okay.
Yeah, just Middlebury, but all the elementary schools.
Oh, okay.
So we want the elementary school students to feel represented through you as well.
Yes.
So, kind of a thought for that could be, one rep may do K through 7, and then another one may do 7 through 12. But again, as Jennifer mentioned, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of commitment. So I think the idea is, from my perspective, is when we go down the road of establishing a policy, would be to make sure to that student that is, however, part of the board, whenever that decides, that, this, it's a lot of work, and, be sure you're committed to it, and if you honestly feel like, okay, it's too much, be honest, and, because it's more than just having multiple different committees. And it's really a unique position that could possibly be created. So, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I would add to that a lot of us have younger siblings as well, so I guess we could also speak to the fact that, hey, my first grade little brother doesn't like the fact that you can't run on the play structure at recess. And I think that as members of the community and the school community, we have lots of connections that won't just represent ourselves, but will also represent others.
So that was one thing that I was going to read aloud, is how do you vision when and if this comes to pass, how do you envision that the person that would be the student rep would not be elected because they were the most popular student in school, but possibly have more of a feeling of what goes on behind the popularity-ness?
Well, one of my ideas that I would push for later in this process is actually that the student be elected from student senate or student council, and then they apply for this position and are elected actually by the board. Because I think the role of the student here is to represent their constituents at the high school, but more importantly is to help the board understand the student position. And so the board would be able to pick a member who they feel would understand, would be able to participate and understand the board meetings. And I think that if we elect, if you take someone from student council, you already know that it's a student, that the students at the high school feel is worthy of representing them. But if we elect if student council elects the reps that go to the board, or this entire school body elects the reps that go to the board, I think we run the risk of electing people who run on a platform and giving the clubs more money and stuff like that. And I think we're really looking for a student who can participate in the board and help out and understands the complexity behind it. And there, I think the benefit would actually be to have the board select who they want to work with. Or the board in concert with student council select who they want to work with, because then we get someone who was selected for their ability to sort of understand the role of the school board.
And to answer that in more depth too, as Ken mentioned, is could be where, the student council would, look at the application and say, okay, this particular candidate seems interesting. Well, let's put down these two candidates, send an email to Peter Collin, Lorraine Morris, etc., or all of you, to say, we think our recommendations are this, and this is what we truly believe, but we believe that it is. We respect, your opinion and possibly your vote on what does the current members of the school board believe of that student. Because yes, it's about the students that believe too, but it's also about all of you sitting up here today.
I just want to say, in fairness, we have just begun to have these conversations with the students, and we were going to flush out a lot of this during the summer and early fall. So these are some ideas. Yeah, these are some ideas.
So you're hearing what we're thinking.
Yeah, so you're hearing, and we're hearing what they're thinking. So it was our intention to take some time to really flush this out and make sure that it's, before we present the policy draft. And then, as you can see, when we went through the wellness policy, we've been through this draft 3 or 4 times, and we keep, tuning it up or changing a little bit. So, and that's going to happen with the student representative on the school board too. So,
as one who will participate in the scribble scrabble that goes into this, I do not want the board to pick the student. I depend and firmly believe that the students can pick an appropriate person, and that is as it should be. You are your own creature. You are representing the high school, and I think that is very important. Our goals in this and your goals in this are probably going to butt heads from time to time. And no, you're not going to get any more money for sports. I mean, that we can say categorically.
That's not.
Yeah, that's
It just seems to me that, well, you won't get it by pushing, let's put it that way. You won't get it by pushing. By the time the budget comes out, hair is standing on end, and it's not going to happen.
Well, there are certain limitations that we have too, I think.
But I really feel strongly that this is a position which needs to be truly representative of the students, and how that gets put together and how it works best is going to be a mutual process. But there we are.
Well, thank you for those beautiful statements.
Also, sorry.
I was just saying, I just want to say, just to be clear, after Mika speaks, is again, as Mary stated, we're just getting your minds going over the summer. So we will final have something the beginning of the school year is ready. So just put it out there.
I just want to point out that no matter how the selection process works, we have some pretty incredible and very, very motivated young leaders here. Like, I can't speak for myself, but these 3 have done some pretty incredible things on student council and are very motivated. So no matter who selects it, like, you're gonna get someone good. So
you're going to be their campaign manager.
That would scare you away.
Thank God we're younger than the parish board.
Anything else on the other
Canes next time.
before we go into executive session?
No.
Okay. Now I will take a motion to go into executive session for ACSD evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We're going to executive session at 8:26 p.m. We'll take a quick break.